Hi guys, welcome to Threads Podcast, Life Unfiltered. My name is Jason. I'm one of the hosts, and then here's Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben.
And then we have Sam with us today. So Threads Podcast, Life Unfiltered, is just kind of a space to share stories about just life unfiltered. We've had episodes like I'm a Christian, but I swear, and those kind of things. So,
can we say what the title was really going to be before Brandy nixed it? I'm a Christian, but I like to say the word fuck.
Yeah.
Just had to throw that out there.
Yeah, she was she worked for a school, so she's like, maybe we'll change the title. So we reached out, or actually Sam reached out to us, and I'll let you introduce it, but I'm kind of getting to the
go for it.
Her comment, but she reached out to us and said this, and this is kind of great about what our podcast is about. It says, if I had heard the segment about transgender people, I might have been upset, but just hearing the whole thing really helped me to paint context, helped me realize that you guys are not looking to my political statements or anything. You're truly just having an honest conversation, which is incredible and very important in this polarizing time. So I just want to thank both of you for doing the podcast. And that's so perfect. Like what you wrote is so perfect. So I appreciate, and Ben appreciates you writing that, because
thank you.
It's amazing. So Ben, why don't you introduce what this bonus episode is about, and then we'll kind of get into it.
So on episode 20, we had included in our current events rundown the story that I came across on Reddit about a transgender student who was, correct me if I'm wrong, but wanting to use the female changing room for a drama production. Is that right? Okay. Yeah. And then there were some parents, and was it students or mainly just parents that were having trouble?
It was actually just like one specific parent. So
one
a student,
parent.
Yeah, a student was like, hey, I'm kind of uncomfortable with this. And the parent was just like, well, time to go nuts. So
interesting. So, okay. So we have a student and their parent who, was it a mom or a dad?
Mom.
Okay. So kind of like a mama bear situation, perhaps, trying to protect her young cub. Interesting. So we talked about that, and Jason and I talked about it, not really, I don't know if acknowledging you is the right way I'm trying to say this, but we were talking about it as if it was just, another news story or current event that happened. We weren't necessarily addressing it as, here's a fellow human being with a story and a crazy life experience and something that happened to them. To me, the story at that point was just, okay, this happened. Here's how I feel. How do you feel? And then we kind of moved on.
Yeah, one of us pulled the article, because we typically look for articles, and I'm a big Reddit user, so I had seen it on Reddit, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So that's kind of like, we weren't seeking it out by any means. Yeah. So can you pull that mic a little up closer to you? Yep. You can pull it right. Yep, that moves just how you want to move it. Yep. There you go. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So, so just going back to that episode, it was just it was like part of a segment, and I had no idea, neither did Jason, that this was going to eventually reach you. And it just shows how crazy technology is and how connected the world is becoming.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, even though you're local here, it's still like, whoa. When we got that email, it was like, this is crazy.
Yeah. So immediately after receiving your email, both Jason and I were like, we need to get her on the show. Like, let's talk. Let's share stories, hear your story, hear where you're coming from and what this experience was like. And so that's kind of the direction we're taking today. So thanks for being here and agreeing to do this.
One of the first questions I want to know is, when you saw that or heard about it, what was your reaction like? Were you?
I mean, I was kind of scared. I
guess.
Yeah, because it was just so odd to hear like other people talking about it.
Right.
And I don't know. I I was in one of my college classes, supposed to be taking notes, and instead I just popped in some headphones and listened to it.
Oh, no. What class was it?
Statistics.
Nah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter too much anyways.
Where are you going to college?
University of Michigan.
Oh, wow. Okay. And are the classes here?
Yeah, it's at GRCC right now.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm still in high school and stuff, so I'm just doing dual enrollment.
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
So what kind of profession are you looking to get into?
Political science.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that.
What draws you to that?
You know, in all honesty, I don't really know. I really just have enjoyed from all of my AP classes about like politics and history and just like discussing like different types of like governments and like how they interact, everything like that. And so I'd say probably in the last like 2.5 years, I've just been like so much more drawn to like politics as like not like it wasn't important to me before, but just like something I really want to focus on.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah, we do need some help in that realm. I mean, it's pretty bad out there.
Yeah.
It's just ugly. I mean, it's like, can't we just get along? Like, why does politics have to be so divisive? Everybody's going to see things differently. I mean, the three of us, if you were to pick a hot button issue, I'm sure all three of us have different views. But the cool thing is we can still sit down and have a conversation because at the end of the day, we're humans.
Yeah.
And that's what.
Yeah, we're all on the same team. Team human.
Yep. There you go. So, yeah, so very cool. Well, best wishes to you as you pursue that career. And is it nerve-wracking to consider working in the political sphere, or does that kind of bring you more joy than nerves?
You know, it's kind of both. So my current plan is to like try and work in a think tank, so I
Okay.
wouldn't be as like directly involved.
Sure.
But also, that's a few years down the road.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows how I might change. So I guess right now it just kind of seems like a faraway dream. So I wouldn't really say it's nerve-wracking. It's just kind of like maybe it'll happen.
Yeah.
But I think as I get closer to like actually having to make a choice about what I'm going to do, that's really when it's going to get a lot more
Yeah.
anxiety filled.
I'm sure. Yeah. So how close to wow, I can't talk all of a sudden.
You want a Monster?
No, that would not help. That would make things
We both
even
like
worse.
Monster Energy. Well, I got one sitting right over there. Yeah, what's the problem for both of us?
Yes. So, you're looking at graduating high school in this year?
Yeah, in May.
In May. Okay.
Exciting.
Yeah, very cool. We kind of got to this a little bit, but tell us more about what's it like to be in the spotlight, to be that person that, Threads podcast is talking about, that people are starting petitions online and they're sharing your story on Reddit. Like, how's that feel to be that person in that spotlight?
Like anything, it's kind of good and kind of bad. I really appreciate seeing so much support in an area like West Michigan as an area, like that's traditionally more conservative.
Sure.
So it is really cool to see that kind of support.
Especially in Byron Center.
Yeah.
You
it's
used to
definitely.
live there.
I used to, well, kind of.
Sort of.
I had a Byron Center address, but I
Okay.
lived in Allegan County. So,
Oh, yeah.
But I do work close to the high school, so I kind of know that area pretty well. And it reminds me a lot of Holland, just as far as the conservative part of West Michigan, So
Yeah.
pretty strict and Dutch and those kind of things.
Yeah, it's definitely got a bit of a reputation on it.
Yeah. It's a good community to live in, but now they got that awesome mall over there, which I've never been to.
The outlet mall?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Have you been there?
I have not. I refuse.
Yeah.
I get anxiety attacks going to shopping malls.
I don't like them either. Like, if I have to go to the Rivertown Mall, it better be going to the movie theater, and it's a straight line from my
Yes.
car to the theater and then back.
Do you know the secret exits from the movie theater down to the parking area?
No.
Yeah. See, I'm all about those.
So you don't even have to walk through the mall?
No, you can go when you're leaving the theater. There's exits that will take you right down to the parking structure.
Oh, that's a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to talk about that later.
Yeah. So, I mean, yes, I struggle with social anxiety, especially in malls. I don't know why. It's just always been a I don't like shopping malls. But that's not about me. This is a chance for Sam to share her story. So in addition to being in the spotlight, I'm sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, but do you ever feel like maybe this is great that there's so many people talking about this, but I wish that they would just hear my perspective?
Yeah, I kind of think so. And I think that's part of why I was like, I want to reach out, because it really sounds like you guys are like really trying to make a difference for like just advocating for conversation. Mm-hmm. And I really think that this would be like an important place to try and like tell my side of the story, because it doesn't feel like a hostile environment or anything.
No.
Yeah. So it's just, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of talk about the whole situation at the school, but I want to kind of make it more about you. You know what I mean? So you can say as much as you want, but that's what I would like to see. Because, that school thing, I mean, it's important, but you've clearly moved on somewhat to reach out to us and those kind of things. But I just want to hear like your story about about being a transgender person and how you feel walking in the community and those kind of things too. So is that cool with you? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to throw that out there. I know we didn't talk about it before, but it just popped into my head. So I'm kind of like a squirrel. So I mean, we're talking about movie theaters all of a sudden.
Yeah, right. It happens.
In regards to that story at Byron Center Schools, did you feel like you had a chance to tell, like, why don't you just tell the story like kind of from the beginning so we'll shut up and just kind of how it played itself out? Because I'm sure most of the information I got just from Reddit. So there was Reddit, come on, the Wild Wild West. Yeah. But there were some huge holes in there as far as the story. So why don't you don't have to give me every minutia thing, but I mean, like, just tell us what happened and how we got to this point.
Mm-hmm. So it was during the spring musical. So it was the Little Mermaid, and I was in it. It was a pretty big cast.
What character did you play?
I was actually just a background person, but I had a really cool like starfish costume I got to wear.
Nice.
It was incredibly terrible colors. It was the ugliest thing I've ever seen. It was fantastic to wear though.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to throw that in.
No, you're good. Yeah, so it was just, as normal. We had all of our like dress rehearsals leading up to that. I had been changing in the women's changing room. There were no issues. I had gotten like permission from my counselor, who had talked to the assistant principal, who talked to the assistant superintendent, and so on. So I didn't really have all that information, but all I knew was like it was good. I was fine. And then the night, like right before the show, I had one of my friends walk up to me and say like, "Hey, this woman just told me you can't change in there anymore," which I was like, "What?"
Wait, so a woman told your friend and the friend told you?
Yeah. She was like, "Hey, go tell your friend Sam that she can't change in there anymore."
So was this a woman involved with the play or the school or school administration at all? Or
no, this was just a parent.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went out and I confronted them and I was like, "Hey, what? Like, do you have any authority to do this? Have you heard from anyone?" And she was like, "No, it's just like, for me as a parent, it's uncomfortable and I need you to leave there." And so, yeah, that turned into a little bit of a nasty situation with just like, what do you mean? Like, you haven't heard from the school as far as I'm aware, I can be in there.
Yeah.
And so, I went and I found like the director, and I sat down with them and they were like, "All right, so we just called administration," and administration was like, "No, you can't change in there anymore." And so it was just like really big shock. It was like 20 minutes before the show started.
Yeah. Worst time ever.
Yeah. Opening night of the show.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So that was fun. So I was just like, okay. And I just left because I was like, I can't handle this. I'm having a panic attack, so that was an experience. And then as it went on, it didn't get that much better. I had school again that Monday, and everyone was talking about it.
Yeah.
So that's like when the petition to like allow transgender students to change in there started, because some of my friends had gone around and they'd asked every single female cast member who changed in that room, like, are you comfortable with Sam being in there? And there was a total of like 2 people who said no out of like 40.
Okay.
And one of the people who said no was like, I'm not comfortable with it, but they should still be allowed to.
Okay.
So it was just, I guess people took that as like, let's start a petition, which I was fine with. I liked that.
Well, of course.
Yeah. But then in response to that, there became petitions of like, don't let students do this. Yeah.
So I was going to ask, had everyone known that you were a transgender person? Like, obviously it's a big school. You don't know everyone, but I mean, everyone in your circle and maybe their acquaintances, like your classmates, like in your grade, did they all know that? Or was this kind of just the people in the play knew it?
I feel like it was pretty widely known.
Okay.
Just because there are like a lot of trans people that I know that go to the school, but not very many of them are out.
Interesting.
So it's like when someone comes out, it's kind of like big news. It's like, oh, okay.
So do you know that for a fact that they are, or you just are speculating?
No, I know. We have like a GSA group where we like talk about things. So
okay.
Yeah.
Like how many people?
I don't know. The number of people who come changes fairly often, so I can't really give like a good estimate.
Okay. I was just speculating. I mean, is it like 20?
I mean, what's been shown for like the national average is about like 1.5% of students are transgender, give or take. Obviously, you know, it kind of depends on where you are, if you're willing to like accept it, if you're willing to come out. So, yeah.
Interesting. So the petition starts both ways, and then where does it go from there?
Yep. So we had the petition for like allowing me and the one for not allowing me. And the like petition for like not allowing transgender students to have like certain rights was just like, there was a lot of hate speech on there. There were threats on there. So we contacted like administration for the website, and we were like, hey, like, you guys don't want hate speech on your website. They were like, yeah. So they took it down. The downside of that was the school never got the chance to see it. So,
oh man.
Yeah. So all those people who made threats, all the people who used hate speech, they couldn't get in trouble because they didn't have any proof.
Then you're like, dang it, why didn't I screenshot all those or take a picture of them?
Yeah. So, you know, it just kind of went on like that. Another petition started up after that one got closed down, and they were like, no comments on this one, but like you can still sign it.
Yeah.
So, you know, that kept going on, and I kind of respected that one more, except they didn't have any of the information right, and they were like, let's not build separate bathrooms for transgender people, and it was like no one ever talked about that.
Well, that had been a hot topic button. Was that
hot button topic?
Hot button topic. Hot cross buns. It was the Obama administration. There was something going on. Like for a while there, Target was like, it was a huge thing. So maybe that just stuck in someone's craw, and that's why they put that out there. But I'm like, what? No one said that.
Yeah, interesting.
So, and at this point, what is administration doing? Like, what is like, and when I say administration, there's the high school, but then there's the superintendent level too. They had to be involved as well. Yeah.
So, as it went on, there were more situations. People started making paper petitions, which had the hate speech on them again.
Right.
Oh.
You know, someone made like a extremely vulgar video about me, and it was like, I have not seen anything like that in a while. It was
that's horrible.
Interesting. Yeah. So I just had a lot going on at school. So I was like, you know, this is a lot. Like, this is not what I was expecting senior year to be.
Right.
And so at that time, administration was not really doing anything. They were just kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like they were just kind of like slowly dealing with some of the like bullying and hate speech, but it wasn't, at least for me, I wasn't made aware of them dealing with anything.
Sure.
What would you have liked them to do? What if you could do it all over again? What would you like them to do as far as to stop that kind of hate and stuff instead of just kind of putting out the little fires here and there?
Yeah. In all honesty, I can't really say, for me, I really would have liked them to at least make me aware when things were happening, because there were even more things that happened that they didn't tell me about for like a few weeks later, and I'm sure there's even more things
I'm sure
that I don't know. So it just would have at least been nice to know that, because at this time I was, well, not too long after anyways, I started having meetings with the superintendent, and I had to like explain to him like, hey, these are the things that are being said about me. This is like, here's information about trans people, because he didn't really know anything.
Sure. Yeah.
So it would have been really nice to know some of those things to like help explain to him more, like, this isn't like casual bullying. This is like, there's a big issue here.
Right.
So just being aware of that, I think probably would have really helped the situation.
Yeah, I think it's tough, and I have a 22-year-old son, and it's tough with the internet and bullying. It's like it's not like back when him and I were kids. If you got bullied, you went home and you were cool, right? Because like they couldn't talk to you or do anything. But now it's like anytime, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram,
can't escape it.
You can't escape it, and so I think it's tough for an administrator to kind of deal with this topic since it's so new. And I think, and I could be wrong, but I feel like the school is bound by a lot of different rules and laws that our state governs over than just a certain body, right? Everyone has, everyone has a right in those kind of things, but I don't know what I would do as an administrator. I'd be like freaking out. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, where do you get the advice to help? So after all that, did you continue to go to school? Like, how long before you're like, okay, I'm out?
Yeah, so that was, I don't know, it just kind of went on for a while. So I was dealing with that for probably a month before I was like, okay, like, this is not working. Like, I couldn't focus in any of my classes. I went from being like having like a 4.11 GPA last semester to like having D's in a bunch of my classes.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't handle it. So it was probably maybe 3-4 weeks ago. I just talked to my mom and I was like, things are getting worse.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily getting worse at school, but like for me, like
mentally.
Yeah, it's just like I can't handle all of this.
Right.
So we talked to my therapist, and she was like, I think you should just not do school for a while and try and see if there are other alternatives. So that's pretty much where we're at now. I'm not going to school anymore. I dropped out of a couple of my classes there that I don't need to graduate, and I'm just trying to work on things from home because, like, being in there, it's hard to not to not relive certain traumas, because it wasn't just like, oh, you can't change in here and that was the end of it.
No. That's probably the least of it.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just really hard to be, and it still is. It's really hard to be in the building. So we've just kind of moved on. I'm doing my college classes still. I'm doing like a language class, and that's it.
Okay.
So what was that like for you? I mean, you mentioned you're above a 4.0 GPA, so I'm going to assume here that school is something you took pride in. And then all of a sudden, that's pulled away. What was that like for you?
Yeah, that was quite a transition for me. Because for me personally, I really enjoy going to school. Like, sure, spring break is fun, but like on summer break, I'm just like, I can't wait to get back to school. And it's not just like, yay, learning, it's also like I get to see people that I wouldn't normally see and have those interactions. So just going from like a really good senior year to like kind of chaos.
Yeah.
That was really hard. And it still is really hard because, you know, I was used to going to school every day, seeing certain people every day, having like this kind of routine.
Yeah.
And then that just goes away. And so it's like, how do I handle this? What do I do in my free time now?
Yeah.
How do I make myself get up, you know, before 10 when I don't have to, you know?
Right.
So that was it was a big transition.
Yeah.
Do you have a good group of core friends that you're still tight and has been helping you through this?
Yeah, I definitely do.
Okay.
I thank my friends so much. I don't always like say it as much as I should, but like honestly, they are probably the biggest support group I have. You know, like obviously my family, they're incredibly supportive.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, there's a lot of horror stories out there where the parents are not supportive, and it's tough, man. It's tough. I can't imagine having to go through that as with non-support. I mean, because your parents, your parents are lame. I get it. You know what I mean? But when it comes down to it, you love them so much, and when they're like, "Yeah, I'm out," like, whoa. I mean, I can't imagine that. So I'm very thankful that you have good parents.
Yeah, it took a little while for them to, you know, kind of get used to it,
and that's normal.
Yeah, but no, it's they've been phenomenal with that.
Good. Yeah. So you just in the last month you've been out of school?
Yeah, it's been like the past like 3 weeks. It was actually just like early this week that we established I'm not coming back.
Oh wow, so it's real fresh.
Yeah. So it was like 3 weeks ago that we were like, okay, we're gonna take a little bit of time. Now we're like, it's kind of over. Okay. I'm just waiting to walk at graduation and move on.
Yeah. That's hard.
One little advice as far as high school, it's lame. When once you're done and moving on in the real world, you can be like, this world's amazing. Like I thought like high school was the end all be all. And then I get out, I'm like, because I had a few bullies, you know what I mean? I'm like, why didn't I punch that guy right in the face? Like, you get out of high school and you have all this confidence. So better things are to come. So I know it's a bummer. It's your senior year. I do get that. But I will let you know, you'll get out of high school and be done with that and you'll be like, this is amazing. You know, I mean, adulting sucks. Let's face it. But
it does.
I mean, it's got its, you know, you can eat ice cream whenever you want.
I mean, the world's your oyster as an adult and you get to set your own path. And I'm excited for you to do that.
So, is there anything else in the story that you want to talk about before we move on to just some general questions about being a transgender person?
No, I don't really think so. I mean, I could go into like a lot more details, but I think that pretty much sums up the situation pretty well.
Are you looking for some closure with the high school as far as like they're going to create a policy, they're going to have a conversation about it? Like, where does that stand with them, or don't you know yet? It's kind of up in the air.
So we had gotten in contact with the ACLU, and we had an attorney who was like, hey, you kind of need to do this. Like, Michigan, they already have guidelines in place saying that like transgender students can use like gender identity specific like areas.
See, that's interesting because when I brought up like the state, I was wondering what was already in place for the school. So they basically violated that then.
Well, no, because the thing is, it's specifically just a guideline. So they're very specific at the beginning. So
it's a gray area.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Open
and then,
to interpretation.
Yeah. And then you also have certain parts of the state government of Michigan saying, hey, this is a violation of like certain rights, like we're going to get you if you do it.
Okay.
So and then there are certain courts saying that you don't have to do it. So it's really just like a big mess of like, what do we have to do? What can we do?
Right. What can we get away with?
Yeah. So I think really with the school, I think we're really making progress with like bathrooms. They were like, hey, we're going to work with the ACLU attorney and our own attorney and really establish like this is what we're doing. When it comes to like changing rooms and like locker rooms, that's where it gets more difficult.
Right.
Because I don't think they still fully understand exactly what it's like, because like the odds of like being assaulted as a transgender person in like a locker room where it's not of your gender identity, like it's really high up there. So I understand obviously like both sides where it's like my kids could be uncomfortable with that, but it's also like, I don't want to get beat up. So with that, they're taking their time on it. Originally I was going to have a lot more say with how it was going. Like I was going to present to the board, everything like that. And then just like the mental situation for me just started going downhill. And I was like, I don't think I can handle that. So right now I'm kind of checked out from it, which honestly is probably better for me at this point.
Yeah, I would really love you to be involved with it, but maybe 6 months down the road, because all this is going to take forever. This is the government. Like there's a ton of red tape, all those things. So it's going to take forever. So you may have an opportunity if you choose to go back and say, hey, let's, what are we doing here? What do you think the right fit is for the locker room situation? Do you want to just be like, it's cool the way it is, or?
That kind of depends. And I think it's more specific to each individual school for how their locker rooms are set up.
That's true.
So like at Byron Center, there are no shower curtains at all or anything. So it's
wall
like
of showers.
Yeah. And like changing areas, they're all like completely open and everything.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, that's kind of more of a gray area,
Yeah, it is.
Obviously, like I don't want people to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to feel uncomfortable. I don't want them to feel uncomfortable. Right. But I think really in order to kind of say, like, I think that, like, people who identify as, like, male should be able to use the male changing rooms.
Right.
I think that there would need to be, like, maybe at least a little bit more privacy.
Yeah, that seems odd. I mean, again, growing up in the 80s and 90s, that was common. But I would feel like now...
Yeah.
They're putting a ton of money into that school. Yeah. I see them doing construction. I'm like, why don't we have this? That seems a little weird.
No kidding.
Yeah. So I really think if that were to change, there would be a little bit more privacy. I would say, as long as they're like out open, they're not like kind of like in the closet, I think they should be able to change in there.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's kind of where I'm at. There are a lot of people who would say, like, don't let them do it. And there are a lot of people who would say, let, like, anyone change in there.
Yeah.
For me, I think in an ideal world, I would want to say just, like, let anyone change in there. But, like, just knowing the community that we're in, I don't think that would happen.
Right.
So I'm just kind of, like, trying to think realistically. I think that would probably be the best way to go, is to add some more privacy. And then, like, if they're like living as like the gender that they identify as, then
yeah, it's always weird. Like I don't work out as much as I should, but the why, like, people just change. Like there's this dude's just like whatever, just completely nude. I'm like, come on, man. Like, I mean, just put a towel around, put your clothes on, and like, what are we doing here? So it doesn't matter if it's young or old. It's just weird to not have that privacy if you wanted to have that privacy.
Yeah.
So, well, it sounds like you're super, I mean, I'm really impressed the way you're speaking about it. You do feel like in some of these, whatever it be that they're pro about, you get a lot of zealots, right? They're just like, and you just look at them like you're a kook, instead of having an intelligent conversation about it where you can be level-headed and, and so, but I'm super impressed.
Thank you.
I like perfect. I mean, well, obviously you're over 4.0, so you're super bright. So it's good to hear.
Thank you.
So we talked about this earlier, and the pronoun thing, like people freak out about that. Like I just talked about the zealot, and so what do you prefer? And are you offended or pissed off or frustrated when it doesn't go that way?
Yeah, I mean it kind of depends. So I use like she her pronouns.
Okay.
And like if someone who I don't know, if they use like he, I might correct them, I might not. It just depends on if I'm like
what mood you're in.
Yeah, and it kind of depends on I'm like, do I think they'll be more upset at me or like confused, or will they just be like, okay, and move on?
Right.
So when people I don't know, when they say like he, it's okay. I don't really care. When people I know, if they say he and like they're just trying to adjust, like it's fine. I get it. Like, you know, it's a adjustment even for me, like for other trans friends that I have, like sometimes I'll mess up on pronouns too.
Yeah.
So like, I don't really care. The only thing where I do really care is like if I've specifically asked someone to say she and they're just like, no.
Yeah.
Because then it's kind of like
frustrating.
Yeah. It's kind of like, is it actually harming you in any way?
Right.
So like, can you just be a little bit nicer or something?
I'd be like, yeah, this friendship's over.
Yeah.
I mean, especially
man.
if someone that you care about, they're like, if they're not going to do it, I feel like you can't be my friend. It sounds stupid, but it's like, this is something that's important to me and this is who I am. Do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's what you were saying too. If it's oops, I forgot all kinds of shit. I mean, it happens. But if somebody that you have specifically asked, please refer to me as she, her, and they just don't, oh man, that would be a deal breaker, I think.
Yeah. It's kind of a more gray area though when you get into like extended family for me.
Oh man,
because you know I can't just be like, oh, you're out of the extended family for me.
Right.
You know?
I mean, I would. I mean, at some point when you're on your own, you know, and not living at home with your parents or anybody, you can be like, yeah, I'm not going to this family function anymore. Yeah. Like this aunt is cuckoo and I'm done with her. But another good thing about getting out of high school.
Yeah, there you go.
I appreciate you saying the adjustment period. That just speaks volumes of how the level-headed thinking, because it's just, we're human, right? Like it's going to take some time to do that. When did you begin identifying as a female?
Yeah. So I really it's obviously different for every single person. So for me, when I was like young, you know, when I was like 9 and 10 and stuff, like I didn't care. I didn't think anything was wrong. It was really when I became like when I really started going through puberty is when I was like, okay, something's off here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I would think about, you know, like when you're like a young kid going through puberty, like the ideal, like how you would look in the future kind of thing. And, you know, it just didn't appeal to me. And I was just like, I don't know why, but like, that's not what I want. Like that sounds uncomfortable, you know?
Yeah.
And like just all the changes that you go through during puberty, instead of being like, oh, cool, I'm growing up. It was kind of like, this is uncomfortable, you know?
Okay.
Like, this is not what I want. This is not, comfortable, I guess. And so it could get really hard during that time. 'Cause it was, you know, obviously everyone, they have their insecurities, but with that, it just kind of felt like I'm not even like comfortable with myself. Like I can't relax with myself because it's like, I feel wrong.
Yeah.
And as I got older, that kind of stayed there, but I was kind of like, you know what? It'll go away. You know, it's just puberty. You know, everyone keeps saying, you know, like your body's going through changes.
Yeah.
Goodness knows it is.
Yeah.
But you know, it kind of stayed. And so by the time I was in middle school, that's when I really started like looking into things and being like, okay, could there be like a bigger reason for this difference? And I was like, I don't know. like maybe I'm just still self-conscious.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't really until like maybe sophomore year of high school where I was like, no, I think this is something else.
Okay.
And so I really did a lot of research. I met with like a therapist from Pine Rest who specializes in like LGBT issues, everything like that. And I was like, you know what? No, I'm transgender. And that happened really at the beginning of my junior year. And I came out to my parents probably 4 months after that, you know, because it took a lot of time to like psych myself up. But
I can imagine.
yeah.
So what was that conversation like? Were they expecting it?
Not really. So I'm also like bisexual. So I had that conversation with my parents like probably 6 months before I was really like, hey, I'm trans. And they were like, that was not a good conversation, you know, because it's just they weren't expecting it. It wasn't, I don't think for them like hate. It was like some miseducation and some like, where is this coming from?
Right.
So that one was the really bad conversation. And then when I talked to them about being trans, it was just to my mom, and it was like kind of the same thing of like, wait, what? Which obviously I understand, you know, that's not, you're not expecting that probably. Right. But you know, that conversation, that was hard. Especially, cause at that time my parents were like, it's okay for you to be bisexual, but it wasn't really like, we're glad that you're not straight.
Right. I mean, it's so tough as a parent. You know what I mean? I can empathize with them.
Yeah.
As far as like being a parent going, you're like a deer in headlights. Seriously. You're like, okay.
Didn't see that one coming.
I'm not prepared for this. So, what we often talk about God on this podcast. And in fact, what was the site? Chartable?
Yes,
Chartable, because we're all there. They put us in a Christianity segment, and it's like,
we didn't sign up for that.
Damn it, Ben. But we both are of faith, and we both go to church. And are you a Christian, or do you believe in God, or those kind of things? No problem if it's not, but it's always an issue in the church with this kind of things, as far as like. I don't know the exact story, but there's a couple that are lesbians that want to get their kids baptized, and they won't do it in a certain church because of that. So it's like, oh man, this sucks. Like, what can we do about this? So do you have any, you know, basis on religion or anything like that?
So for me, that's a conversation that could go on a while.
Oh yeah, for us too.
I grew up going to church. I grew up, like, I don't want to say like as a Christian, because I was like 7, so I didn't really, you know too much.
No,
sure, that's fair.
But you know, I grew up going to church, and I don't know. It was just, I never really felt too much of like a connection. I kind of felt more like, why are there so many old people here?
Sure. Did it feel more like an obligation versus something you wanted?
Well, we've
to
all
do?
felt that way.
Yeah, for sure. I still do. I mean, seriously.
Sometimes.
My wife is running the Gazelle Girl race tomorrow, and that means we get to skip church. And there's a part of me that every time I get to skip church, I'm kind of like, yes. It's just how it is.
Well, I mean, I'm the same feeling. Sometimes I'm just like, yeah, I'm done. You know, you work all week, but every time I go, I'm always like, oh, I'm so glad I went. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You just feel refreshed.
Yeah. So I guess kind of as I grew up, I kind of grew more distant to church, more distant to like any belief in God. And that really didn't change until probably, I want to say it's been a year and a half now. We started going to a new church, City Life Church. And it's like downtown Grand Rapids.
I'm very familiar with them.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And
Good
that
people
was, that was just, I guess, a big change for me, because I was like, wait, so like you can be Christian in West Michigan and still be like,
so you might know our turtle
working,
friend.
I guess.
Does the name Joe Reed ring a bell?
Honestly, I don't know very many people at church,
That's fine.
so I'm not gonna.
Well, he goes there, and he's a fan of ours. So,
Oh, that's really cool.
and then I know a couple of other people. I mean, we can play. This is what happens. We find out all these random connections, and then we're like, "Do you know so and so?"
It's Dutch bingo.
It's total
That's
Dutch
what we call
bingo.
it. Like,
So I'm not going to go down the Dutch bingo path. We can play that game later, but let's stay on task here, Ben. Got to remind myself.
So for me, then, it's just kind of, I feel like I'm becoming a lot more open to like believing in God. You know, for me, it's like, it's just always been so like this or that, you know,
Sure.
like you do or you don't, like evolution or creation,
Yeah,
you know, everything like that. So it's just kind of like, I always felt like I really just had to choose one and like I couldn't explore the other at all.
Sure.
And so I think as I was getting into my teenage years, I was kind of going the opposite way where it's like, all right, I'm going to stick with this and not explore this. And now I think I'm just kind of more in the middle where it's like, you know, I do believe that like God could exist. It's just like, I don't know right now. And I think that's really why, I think the big reason behind why I'm like a lot more open to that and to that relationship is just because like City Life Church really, it was like, you can be a Christian without doing some of the like hypocritical Christian things where it's like, you know, help the poor, but like you open your church mainly in an area where it's all rich white people and you don't try and invite anyone in like a lower class community, stuff like that.
They have done phenomenal work in going to the people and being where they are. It's incredible.
yeah, one thing we do talk about a lot on this podcast is the hypocrisy of the Christian church. I grew up Christian Reformed, and I had a lot of abuse when I was a kid growing up, and my family would be like, oh, we're the perfect family at church, but at home it was just like a shit show. So I know about hypocrisy, and I hate that part of it. Like, and we always talk about, that's why we say we're life unfiltered, you know, the Facebook fake or the Instagram fake. Well, my life is great, but then you know personally that their life is in shambles. You're like, what are you doing? So again, I'm getting off topic again, but
we do have a listener, a friend of ours. Really interesting. Jason mentioned we do this other podcast for rideshare. Amy's been on that, and she started tuning into Threads. She's watching now, and she just has a comment for you. Sam, don't you give up on God. Real Christians open their hearts to everyone. So nice little feedback from a listener for you.
And I feel like, is it called City Church?
City Life.
City Life. And a lot of churches are going to that philosophy of like, hey, we love everyone. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? I personally struggle with the transgender community and gay and lesbian because I just don't understand it. And it's not like I'm against it. I would say in my political views, social issues, I'm very liberal. But money and some other things, I'm pretty to the right. So smaller government, I like to keep my money, those kind of things. And it's just, I don't know what's right either. I know what I read in the Bible, but I also like want to say, I love you, come in like this. I want everyone to be involved with God. So it's tough, you know, it's tough. And you are level headed, but saying that to somebody else that might be a transgender person would be freaking out on me right now. Like, you bigot, you know what I mean? And it's just, I'm just telling you the truth. I don't know what to think. I'm supportive of all of it, but as far as my faith goes, it's just a tough gray area.
Yeah.
So.
And that's what I really appreciate. And that's really what I didn't see a lot of when I was growing up. And I think that's part of the reason why I was like
getting away from church.
Obviously my parents, they were like, hey, we love everybody. You know, it's just like we never really had an opportunity to actually see it.
Well, you put these churches in these, you know, like you said, the rich white neighborhoods. You're like, what's going on here? Like, no, I totally agree. That's 100% true.
Another comment for you from Ben Harris. I've not interacted with him, so he must be new to the show. But he says, "Not an easy path to walk, but it's better to be yourself than live feeling trapped. I'm proud of you being you." So, looks like you're getting a lot of love.
Yeah, like I was saying, just sometimes just being able to hear that support, like in this community, is just overwhelming. You know,
Absolutely,
it's fantastic.
Yeah. I definitely would encourage you, just as a person, to be a spokesperson for that, because there's a ton of people, like, even in school, that haven't come out yet. And how terrible was that feeling that you had because you wanted to, but you were scared. And then you talk about the suicide rates, you know what I mean? Like, how many, I do have someone in my life that is a transgender person, and I've spoken to him, and I'd be like, dude, you gotta, like, tell the world. You could save so many people. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's a lot of pressure to put on him. But in the same token, I'm pressure. Like, I feel like that's your not your duty. I guess that's not the right thing, but I don't know. I guess it's no different than me trying to promote something either. But I mean, I just feel, I can't imagine being trapped and or just having that conversation with somebody. So I'm putting pressure on you.
Hey, I mean, you know, as bad as it is, I'm kind of, like, as negative as it was for me, I'm kind of glad this whole situation happened.
Yeah.
Just so then that way, like, other students will know, like, hey, there were some issues in the past, but, like, hopefully we've moved on.
Right.
Yeah. Something my wife shared with me as we were talking about you coming on the show, and I'll just put it out there. My wife is a social worker. I wouldn't go so far to call her liberal. I would say she leans a lot more left than I do. So we have some interesting conversations because of that. I love her dearly, and she has made me a better person. It does bring up interesting conversations, though. So with that intro, I'll read this quote she shared with me, and I think I really like this. "The only clear line I draw these days is this: when my religion tries to come between me and my neighbor, I will choose my neighbor. Jesus never commanded me to love my religion, but he commands us to love our neighbor." So we have a sign in front of our house that kind of has the same message. We really try to push that with our kids, especially. Love your neighbor as yourself. Like, that's what Jesus calls us to. And who's your neighbor? It's people in your community, people who don't look like you, pray like you, think like you. Those are your neighbors. And what are we expected to do? Love them. And yeah, I'm with Jason. It's definitely a very confusing sometimes. And, you know, you have what Scripture says, and I do believe that Scripture is God's word. However, it wasn't written in English. Like, there are some things that may have gotten lost in translation. I'm not going to say did.
We talk about that too.
Yeah.
Like, seriously? We're getting on a tangent, but I'm like, why did the Bible stop being written? Like, all of a sudden it's just like, we're done.
Yep.
And we always say, what about the miracles? Like, they talk about the miracles. I mean, where's the miracles in 2019? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Ben disagrees with me, but he says you can see God in everything. Like, he'll say, you can see God in this water bottle. Like, what do you mean? Well, God made the person that designed the water bottle and blah, blah. I'm like, okay, bro, like, you know, stretching it a little bit.
Maybe just a touch, but yeah. So all that to say, am I a firm believer in my faith? Absolutely. Am I a believer in the Word of God? Yes. Am I open to the thought that perhaps we're not getting it? Yeah. I mean, I feel like if I get to a point in my faith where I say I'm right because this is what the Bible says, then it's no longer a matter of faith. That's dogma. That's just straight up propaganda almost. Like, this is what it says, and there's no room for doubt. There's no room for question. There's no room for discussion. This is what the Bible says, so I'm going to stick with that. I think the faith that God calls us to and that I see in the Bible is people that live with questions and yet still choose to follow him. So that's where I'm at on the whole God thing. Any follow up to that stuff?
No, not really. It's just, I really appreciate hearing that, knowing that there are people, well, more people, and I'm talking to them right now that, are like, you have to be realistic with the Bible. You have to be realistic with your relationship with God and saying like, I don't know everything. I don't know everything. He does. I don't. I'm going to do, the best I can with what I have. Mm-hmm. So I really respect that, and I really appreciate hearing that.
Well, thank you. Kind of on the same token here, what's it like attending high school as a transgender in a community that's known for being conservative? I know we kind of hinted at that in previous questions, but anything else to add in that regard?
It's interesting.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
In all honesty, I guess I didn't see a huge difference like before I came out and after I came out. Like I definitely had some incidents where I would, I was having to report people like saying like, they said this and they did this or whatever, but it wasn't huge. I think, you definitely get some looks, you definitely, get some comments made about you, but it didn't, until I guess like this point, it didn't really seem like a hostile environment. It was just like, because there were some really supportive teachers, some really supportive friends, teachers who weren't necessarily supportive, but they weren't like, ooh, get out, know?
Yeah.
So, it was really good, up until like this last semester. So yeah, I was actually kind of like pleasantly surprised when I came out. I was like, oh, so people are just like, a lot of people are okay. Like they don't
and this
care
is
that much.
And this is another thing with the internet. Kids nowadays are so much more open to everything. I mean, even racism has gone down a ton. Like there's the N-word. They have statistics on how much it's searched for, and it goes down incredibly amount as the years go on because people are like, what is this? This is stupid. You know what I mean? Because imagine coming out in the 80s, like when I grew up, like I would never even know anything. Like I'd be like, what? You know what I mean?
Imagine.
Yeah, I mean it would be terrible. So, which also piggybacks onto the comment of like, you should be a supporter. Like, I'm going to pressure you to tell other people it's okay. Like, I know. I can't imagine just being being able to not to be myself. Like I'm so myself. Like Ben like hates it that I'm on myself because sometimes like you're non-apologetic sometimes. I'm like, yeah, I know. I piss a lot of people off, but I'm like, I can't imagine having to, and that's, I'm not relating to the transgender person about that. I'm just saying just having to hold myself back would be terrible. So, and I just think you're super smart, and I think you can do a lot of good.
Thank you.
I am one of the questions I had that isn't on here. Is that okay if I ask?
Oh yeah,
okay.
That's fine.
So what about the surgery aspect of being a transgender person? Are you for that, against that, or what's your thought on that?
Yeah. So like pretty much everything else, that's completely different for different people.
Yeah.
Like I know some people who are like, I can't wait to get surgery. And I know some people who are like, who knows if I will.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I think it can be a really good thing. I think it can be definitely helpful. For me personally, I can't wait to get surgery.
Okay.
I can't afford it.
Yeah.
So, I won't in the near future at all.
Right.
But, I for myself am really like, I think it's good. I think it's a good option.
Interesting. Yeah. You also brought something early up about the bisexual. I always wondered, and this is me coming from a heterosexual place, is like if you transition to a girl, are you like into dudes or vice versa? So I was always like, what, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand where it's kind of confusing a little bit?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm just
I
like,
do.
I guess it's each person's preference, but then are you a transgender person or are you gay? Because if you transition to a woman and you like another woman, well, is that a transgender person that's gay? You know, see what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be offensive or anything. Or I don't understand it. And maybe you're not able to explain it or not.
Yeah,
But
I mean, it does kind of depend on the person.
Yeah.
So, like, someone might say that. I think normally, if you're transitioning, you're probably gonna say that because, like, it's more, I guess, like a recognition of your gender identity.
right.
But no, to be completely honest, I asked some of those same questions. So
Yes. Yeah, I was just always like, oh, that's interesting. But
yeah.
not that I have a lot of people in my life that are going through that, but I just always thought it was like, man, now I can ask that question.
Yeah. And that's one thing for me. Like, you hear those labels all the time: gay, straight, bi, whatever. I think today, what this interview has done for me is helped me realize that there are people, like actual people, behind those labels that I throw out. And I think it causes me to pause a little bit more before I make snap judgments about people. You hear those hot button words of gay, lesbian, and everybody, people in the church they get up in arms about those terms. And it's like, they're going to burn in hell. And I'm like, okay, pause. You do know we're talking about humans here, like fellow human beings that are good in school, that want to go into politics, that have parents like mine. Like, this isn't some label that we can just ferociously attack. Like, we're talking about people here. So I think today has really done a lot for me in that regard. So just when you were mentioning the different labels and stuff like that, that's kind of where my brain went. So thanks for tackling that question. I know that wasn't necessarily a easy answer one. So
yeah, of course. Yeah.
So we're going to wrap up because I know you're on a time restraint and we should be too. And we never have a time restraint. It's like, this is kind of nice. Like, oh yeah, we're done. But do you have any closing thoughts as far as, what else you want to say or, anything else? You want to call somebody out? No, don't do that. That would be a terrible idea.
Yeah, no. I guess I would just really encourage anyone who's listening who, isn't necessarily like comfortable talking about this. I get it. It makes sense. Everyone's like different in that, but like, I think it can be a very beneficial situation to talk to people, like what you were saying, where it's like you realize a little bit more, these aren't terms, these are people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that can be really good. And for like any people who feel like they have to hold themselves back, like not come out because they're scared of what will happen, if there's like a legitimate threat to your safety, yeah, don't do it. But for everyone else, for everyone who it might be hard, but you can do it. I really think that you should when you're ready. So yeah, okay. I guess that's it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been amazing and informative, and it's always something that we're about life unfiltered and open conversations. And I was just so excited when you reached out. I'm like, yes, like I just want to like talk about it. So we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, guys, so much.
Thank you so much to our new friend Sam for joining us on this episode. It took a lot of guts for her to do that. So leave us some feedback and we can share that with her. You can write a review of our show at Apple iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please also check out our new website, threadspodcast.com. And you can search for us on social media by looking up Threads Podcast Life Unfiltered.